We're now being joined by Arif Kerele. He's co-founder, Food Click Support Initiative. He joins us live via Zoom from Canada this morning. It's quite early for them, I understand, but then this is something he has been very passionate about, and he wants to jump on the conversation. Arif, I'd like to say thank you to you, myself and my colleague, Queen Agaba, for going all the way to join us on the show this morning. Okay, I'd like to believe that Arif can hear us loud and clear. But just let's jump right on it. We basically are at some say crossroads with regards to the state of the economy. But I want us to talk about food security in particular. At what point can a country particularly say that it is now, so to speak, food secure? Because I remember in my undergrad days, a lecturer had once mentioned that one of the ways a country can measure whether or not it's progressing is when it has been able to conquer hunger. So how do we determine for a country that we are food secure?
Good morning, Queen, for having me on this show this morning. I really appreciate. And by Food and Organization Association definition of what food security is, a country, and I'm going to paraphrase. I won't be able to quote verbatim. A country is food secure if all of the people in that country have access to food, quality food, that is cost reasonable, that is also can provide for them for their basic nutritious needs. This is just the way the country defines, the United Nations defines a food secure country.
Interesting. I'm asking that because, I mean, right from when I was a child, we've been told that Nigeria is blessed across boards, particularly in the area of agriculture. I mean, you are in Nigeria, and even though you are now a diaspora in Nigeria, talk to us about what we are not doing right in the area of agriculture.
Oh, okay, thank you very much for that question. So, one of the fundamental metric to measure if a country is advanced or otherwise is the availability of food. Nothing else matters except for the fact that if you are not able to feed your country, you are not able to provide for your people. And it's a major metric for you to measure if that country in itself is advancing. Now, in our agricultural space, we have quite a large number of things that we're not doing right. One of such is the fact that our agricultural sector is still very primitive in a contemporary age. And this would not serve us right. And it will not help us in trying to meet up with the food security that has been defined by the United Nations. So one of such things that we are doing wrong is the fact that we don't have supporting infrastructure. Agriculture cannot thrive without those supporting infrastructure. Number two, our agricultural value chain is broken. A lot of things are missing in our agriculture sector that has to be fixed. Imagine that Nigeria in the current age still has far less tractor. Tractor should be one of the basic tools in agriculture as of today. But today we are one of the countries with the least tractor, and we're talking about mechanization. How can we talk about feeding your country when you don't have the right set of tools to be able to meet those demands? Another thing is the issue of security that are not helping it matters. The rural community account for large number of our food production, and if those communities are not secure enough to be able to go to farm to do all the things that they need to do to produce the product that we would need as a country, and those products that we also need for forex, how do we hope to be able to feed our nation? So definitely we cannot talk about the fact that Nigeria is food secure, and that's one of the issues that we are facing today.
I can imagine, because I mean, this is me being curious. We've seen Nigeria in the last few years alone putting billions after billions into agri-specific projects. I mean, we've not forgotten just so soon the idea behind the Anchor Borers program, which was basically midwifed by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Just 2 days ago, my colleague had covered an event where it was specifically women who were talking about agriculture and the challenges involved in it. And it's pathetic how they say that while funding that's being channeled into agri-specific projects continues to increase, then the output continues to decline. Yeah, how do, I mean, just walk us through that paradox.
It's quite unfortunate, you know. Let me just give like a perspective to some of the myriads of challenges that we're having, and how important this agriculture space is. Maybe if people are able to get the statistics, they will have make a sense of it. Now, agriculture accounts for about 25% of our GDP and also employ about 70% of our population. 70% of our labor force is employed by is agricultural based employment. Now, what it means in essence is at the end of the day, the amount of labor force does not commensurate with the GDP that we are getting. That means there's a missing link. Now, another very important statistic that I want people to understand or run away with is the fact that in 2022, there was a statistics by Harvard, which says that Nigeria has a population about 116 million Nigerians, which is about 44% of our population, are either severely or moderately food insecure. These are statistics that should keep us awake at night. And this was just 2022. And I know between 2022 and now we have, the issues has even skyrocketed beyond what we had when those statistics were made. So I'm just giving a background to all of the, the things that we are facing. Now, today we have a lot of funding going into agriculture, but having minimal output. It is all about will, it is all about governance. And when governance has failed to provide those needed interventions in terms of policy. And aside the fact that it's policy, implementation is one of the challenges that we have faced in Nigeria. If we have good policy, implementing those policies has always, been a challenge whereby, people have always applied individual, preferences, individual prejudices to policy formulation. And if we're talking about having to, change the course of our situation, we need to be able to follow reasonable and robust policy to the latter. And these are just one of the, areas. These are the gaps that we are having. If we are able to fill the gaps of policy, I think a lot of things or issues that we have in Nigeria will be resolved. And also, the policy has to also be holistic. We can't just decide to resolve issues on the surface. We also have to look at the root cause of those issues before we start, talking about policy. Just one of the examples that I gave initially was the fact that insecurity is one of the major issues that we have. Majority of our agricultural produce is coming from those rural areas. And if rural dwellers are not able to access their farms because of insecurity, how do we hope to be, whatever policy that we are having, whatever 4 days that we're having, how do we hope to be able to, manifest it positively in the lives of Nigerians? These are the issues.
Follow home news. I mean, I'm what you've followed recently. My colleague will just ask you a few questions shortly, but I just wanted to know, right? Now, the president has declared state of emergency. We had already seen one that was declared again last year, some months ago, on food security, right? So in an ideal situation, what are the best practices when you say food, state of emergency has been declared with regards to food security? What are we supposed to be seeing going forward? Are we supposed to see some drastic increase in output or some kind of last minute desperate investments in agriculture?
So agriculture is not a last minute, endeavor. It is something that has to be planned. It cannot be an haphazardly planned, process, because the growing season is quite different from the reaping season. So it's something that has to be intentional. It's something that has to go through a thoughtful process. So now on the state of emergency that was declared, last year was declared, and quite a couple of palliatives were distributed by the government. Now, trust me, if I tell you that palliative is 50% success, 50% failure, and I will explain why. Now, the reason I said 50% failure is the fact that the palliative was still largely politicized. How can you provide palliative to Nigerians through the hands of politicians? Now, how advanced countries or society will have done that, those palliative is to channel those palliative through non-governmental organizations that have been, intervening in the lives of those that are mostly affected or vulnerable within the society. How do you hope to provide palliative through politicians that have leanings, that have inclinations to their fan bases? But if we had done that through, I think that's one of the major policy policy faults that I found in the last intervention. And I hope this new emergency intervention plan would not follow the same route. Now, on the issue of how we have been able to resolve, how we have been able to get to the new emergency plan. I think one of the major things that was said was to have food taken out of the national food reserve and distribute to Nigeria. It's fine and it's fantastic. But if you are going to have such intervention, like I said, and you want it to actually, trickle down to the most vulnerable of the most vulnerable, we need to be able to channel that through the grassroots. And the best people to do that are those NGOs that are already impacting in the lives of Nigerians at the grassroots level. If we want to do the same thing the same way, we will not see new results. If we are able to be more holistic, more intentional, more reasonable with the way we are doing things, and whatever that we are doing is devoid of political inclination, political insinuations, and all of that, definitely we'll be able to drive the necessary and the needed impact in the lives of Nigerians. So, declaring a state of emergency is not enough. It is the policy and the will that is driving, those emergency declarations that really matters, and I think that's where the government needs to work on.
Okay, many thanks, Mr. Harif. Now, my question will be as regards these policies. A few days ago, I attended a conference where women in agriculture, report has it that women contribute 70% to Nigeria's agriculture. They make up 70%. And one of their challenges, some of their challenges is as regards to recognition and financing support for them. And then they cried also that they see that grants, loans, resources are given to farmers, but they don't get to grassroots farmers, and they don't get to the people who are practical in these farms. Now, how do we bridge this gap between these resources and the grassroots farmers?
So, very lovely question, Queen. And I'm going to be very upfront with you. Now, farmers in should I say, Sena Klein, are some of the richest people in the world. At least I've had experience with farmers in Germany when I used to live. I have experience here also in Canada, with my interactions with farmers, and I know how much impact they have. Now, if you look at the issue of grants or the funding to those people and they are not getting to the right people, it also explains some of the things that I have highlighted before. The reason why such happens is the fact that we politicize too many of our policies. Of course they call it policy and politics. It's kind of synonymous. But then when it comes to the things that will impact our nation, we cannot continue to politicize those things. Now, one of the things that I feel that it happens is, let me explain how some of the grants that companies or organizations get here in Canada. What they do is they take it through third-party organizations that will distribute it to those organizations that are actually in need of those grants. Okay, let me break it down a little more. Now, government wants to give grant to, small and medium scale enterprise. Now, there's a third party that will vet those small and medium scale organizations and be able to check them, check all their lists, do their due diligence to see that those organizations are meriting those grants, and they provide those grants through those third-party organizations. So those third-party organizations are midwifing on behalf of government to be able to intervene in those small and medium-scale enterprise. I think that should be the way forward for Nigerian government. You cannot begin to do those things through the hands of, politicians, through the hands of your cronies and all of that. This is something that has to be taken seriously. And I think that is the best way to circumvent the current challenges that we're facing in respect to what the question that you asked.
Many thanks.
I'd like to, on the final note, just ask you this, Arif. Hopefully, you can catch an hour's sleep before you jump out on the streets this morning. But I'm just going to ask you this real quick, right? If we get it right with funding, right? We get it right with funding. That means if we're able to drive funding all the way down to the farmers themselves, not civil servants, not politicians and their cronies, all right? Not the hallelujah boys, the real farmers on the ground. Would that solve over half of the problems we are dealing with in the agri sector in Nigeria?
It should be able to solve, a large chunk of the problem, even though it's not going to totally solve, our problem. Now, let me give you like a much more broader spectrum of what the problem is. Just like I said, we have insecurity, we have lack of mechanizations, we also have, lack of supporting infrastructures. Now, if foods are produced in the rural communities, how are we able to transport those foods to urban centers where those food can be used by, the elite or whoever that needs it, where we have more of our population, residing. So another issue is, even if we are talking about agriculture as a means to forex, those supporting infrastructure are also very important. Those mechanization, those transportation to the ports. The ports are not residing in rural communities; they are also residing in urban centers. So, how do we transport those things to those areas? If we're also talking about some of the challenges that we also be able to have is if we want to expand the agricultural value chain, the agro-processing, it involves industrialization, even if the industries are resided in the rural areas or, semi-rural centers. Now, getting those goods to also the urban centers and distribution is also requires road network. It also requires, train services that is also all the services that is designated for those purposes. So, of course, if we have those things to where it is, it's going to resolve half of the problem or a certain amount of the problem, because I can't say half. But if we are able to capture all of the challenges and we're able to put them together and we have like a long-term plan to be able to secure those issues, get funding to help provide for road networks that are closer to all those farm centers, get them connected, get funding for mechanization, our tractors. How are we able to get those farm tools, farm implement that we need? People are already talking about agroponic farming, vertical farming, and all of that, just to resolve global food insecurity. We are still talking about primitive agriculture tools. We have a long way to go. Of course, there is hope ahead of us. Only if we are able to grab it and we are able to actually, be more intentional, be more sincere with whatever that we are doing to impact the lives of Nigerians. I think we have a good place because we have large arable lands. Our lands are arable, our lands are fertile. We just need to embrace, what we have and the blessings that God has, bestowed us with, and be able to, bless our nation and our people with those blessings.
Okay, we would say blessings on you too, Harif, this morning for making it to be with us. We've been speaking with Harif Kerele, he's co-founder of Click Support Initiative. He joined us live via Zoom from Canada. We do hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
That's why we're taking a quick break, everyone. The show returns shortly. This time we're talking about issues that are specific to policy as it has to do with the socio-economic realities that the country is grappling with at this point in time. Don't go away.